Hey guys, it's me, Kim. How are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. So obviously we're here today to talk about one of my faves of all time, Gwen Stefani. And I decided to do this video not because I have any beef with Gwen. I love her. I love her. But I think it's really important for us to be able to take a step back and view our faves, who are sometimes problematic, as objectively as possible. And I'm not immune from liking stuff that is a little off kilter. So let's dig into Gwen and her long career as a beautiful, very thin, very red-lipped cultural appropriator in a loving way. This is a no-drag zone. So I've loved Gwen Stefani since I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. Ever since I saw her on TRL, that's Total Request Live for Gen Z. And I remember seeing her and being like, oh, like, that's a dope chick. But those of us who love Gwen, love No Doubt, love Lamb, have to be honest about something that is very serious. Our girl is probably one of the most flagrant cultural appropriators in like modern music memory. She's been doing it consistently for a good 20-25 years. And unfortunately, she is a habitual offender, or at least she was. Lately, she's just been doing like beautiful blonde woman with a red lip. Or actually, she's been appropriating Oklahoma redneck culture because she's dating Blake Shelton. But the most offensive stuff, hopefully, is behind her. I'm not even sure what made me think of this, I guess because I've been in nostalgia mode. But as I reviewed No Doubt and her own personal discography and the music videos, oh girl, it was bad. So that Tragic Kingdom album has Don't Speak, which I loved. It also has Just a Girl, which I also love. Gwen is out here looking young in her little crop top and red lip, raging against the patriarchy, dancing around. But then you watch the video and it's like, what you got on there, Gwen? What's that on your forehead? Oh, it's a Bindi. Bindis have spiritual significance for Hindus. Gwen Stefani, obviously, not Hindu. Here she is talking about why she first decided to adopt the Bindi.
The Bindi was actually inspired by Tony's mom. And so I would be at Tony's house and she would come down the stairs and she had her little Bindi on, and I started wearing them just for fun. And I think the Just a Girl video is one of the first times I really, after that I always wore one. But before that I would wear them here and there, you know, I thought it looked really cool. The idea of being this kind of like starlet but like little Indian thing, you know, I don't know, don't ask me. And I remember my mom being like, what are you gonna wear that for? And then after that it was like, you know, you go to the mall and you could find your Bindi kit. I just couldn't believe it.
So obviously in 2019 we recognize that is not appropriate, but you know, back in 95, 96, she was just using it as an accessory to match her kind of rockabilly vibes. And she did it a lot. The Bindi is in the Don't Speak video, it's in the Spiderwebs video, it's in the Excuse Me Mr. video. Like, that was her thing. She even did interviews wearing this. I mean, full on henna, full on saris, Bindi. I mean, come on, girl. Like, you're doing a whole lot. It's a lot, Gwen. But as bad as that is, am I going to cancel Tragic Kingdom? No, I am not. Then she collaborated with Moby for Southside in 1999. Now look, Moby is another person who is very lucky he came out when he did, because today his career would be dunzo from jump. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look at the songs that he sampled on his huge album Play. Like, that's not okay. In this Southside video, Gwen is wearing all sorts of braided hairstyles and gold and acrylic nails and all that. It's what back then the white stylists called it ghetto fabulous. Then we move into the Return of Saturn era, and that's when I really got on the No Doubt train. That's when I was really on the Gwen train. She came out with that shocking pink hair. I remember at one point she had braces. Like, this was before Return of Saturn came out, but like, she was out in public with that shocking pink hair and she had braces, and I was like, oh my god, how cool, she has braces and I have braces. But anyways, I loved the video for Ex-Girlfriend. It was directed by Hype Williams, but you know, Gwen made some choices in that video. She was wearing the shocking pink plaits in her hair and the, you know, really skinny chola eyebrows. And we know that those are chola eyebrows because she even went so far as to put the teardrops under her eye. And it's like, sis, what are you doing? She also wore Bantu knots in that video. It's obviously appropriation, but she looked fucking sick. The looks were sickening. I'm not canceling ex-girlfriend either. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but I know that it's okay if you're mad. Then we get the video for another song I love, Simple Kind of Life, where Gwen is just normal, you know, running through the streets in a beautiful wedding gown. And it's like a completely cool, chill video until we get to the end where she picks up a brown baby? What? Where did the brown baby come from? And then the thing is, like, it's not just a brown baby. It's supposed to be like a mythical, magical brown baby. It's like, okay, well, this is not right. Then we get to the Rocksteady era, which is like 2001, 2002. That's where we get Jamaican Gwen, where they're collaborating with the dance hall artist and the reggae artist, and we're wearing the red, the yellow, and the black. To recap, we've had Indian Gwen, we've had Black American Gwen, we've had Chola Gwen, Latina Gwen, we've had Jamaican Gwen, but the worst by far was yet to come. The Lamb era was egregious. Gwen, being the style icon that she was, came out with her fashion line, LAMB, Love Angel Music Baby, around the same time as her first solo album. And there were jams. There were so many jams. She would dress up in these kind of whimsical Alice in Wonderland outfits, and they were kind of sexy, but they were really cute, and she loved Vivienne Westwood at the time and John Galliano, like that was her thing. But she would always, in this era, be flanked by 4 Japanese girls. She called them the Harajuku girls after a little district in Japan. These girls were just there. They never spoke. We never heard from them. They were just silent in the background. Sometimes they danced, but generally they were just there. And it was weird. She treated these girls like dolls. She sang about dressing them up and how cool she thought they were. And she talked about, ooh, that's so kawaii and all of this stuff. And it's like, as an adult, I'm like, girl, because Gwen was like 35 at this time. It's so offensive. You didn't see anything wrong with the fact that you're dragging these women around like they're props. They never open their mouths, and then most of the time they're dressed up in these little Japanese schoolgirl outfits, which is like really weird and kind of porn-like. And another thing as an adult that is weird to me is we still have an issue with the outsourcing of white supremacist images globally, you know, like to different parts of the world. So a thin white woman with blonde hair being in the middle of these 4 Japanese girls who are flanking her, like that just, it looks really, it sends really bad messages. It's bad when Gwen is still the ideal in many parts of the world. You know, it's something that needed to be considered. What's really interesting to me is sometimes the Harajuku girls, sometimes they wore those very stereotypical uniforms, but then sometimes they dressed up kind of like black. Like in the Hollaback Girl video, the Harajuku girls were wearing, you know, we would call it now athleisure wear, and one of them would have an afro, and then some of them would have cornrows, and it was a Japanese interpretation of Black American culture, kind of like what Ariana Grande did in her 7 Rings video, actually. There's a lot of similarities, but we don't have time to get into that. But Ariana Grande and Gwen Stefani are doing similar things. But anyways, Hollaback Girl was my shit. It's everyone's shit. It was a very, very popular song. I don't really care, as I've said before, about non-Black people wearing braids and afros and all of that stuff. I think it's troubling when it becomes a pattern, and I think it is disconcerting when it becomes a means to make money. Like, that's when I become concerned, and that's when I become very offended. But I will say, the stuff that she did to Japanese people, Japanese women, and Japanese culture is like beyond. It's beyond the pale. Look, at one point I owned a little Lamb branded camera that had Harajuku or whatever on it in Japanese, sold in partnership with Gwen Stefani. Now how you gonna sell Harajuku culture, Gwen? You can't do that. And I also remember there being so much branded stuff in Target, like perfume and accessories and clothes. How are you selling this Japanese culture? At the time when all of this was going on, I was 14, 15, I was still in high school, and I was woke, but not where I am now. And I remember at the time thinking, well, that's a little weird, but I just didn't have the tools or the knowledge to really break it down. But there were people who were pushing back, and one of those was Margaret Cho. Margaret Cho, back in 2005, wrote a really interesting blog post calling Gwen out for this. And she said, you know, you can't just tote around for non-speaking Japanese girls. She actually compared it to minstrelsy, she compared it to blackface, and now usually when people compare stuff to blackface, you know, to black people's very unique struggles in the United States, I'm like, girl, try again. But I got it. I got it, and I understood what Margaret Cho was saying, and it's so unfortunate that didn't become a bigger deal. And I think that it didn't become a bigger deal back then because we did not have social media. You know, I have issues with social media today, but what you have to acknowledge is social media gives minorities, gives people of color the opportunity to speak back meaningfully and be heard. Now, I don't know what was going on in Gwen's mind at the time. She probably thought that she was doing them a favor, that she was spotlighting the culture, that she was just doing something cool and good. I've heard her say, you know, she just wanted to pay girls to hang out with her because she was around men so much. And it's like, And now, so many people have written about this and talked about it. I mean, obviously, it should go without saying that you cannot use ethnicities as props. You know, like, it's not just decoration or, you know, some spice that you add into your aesthetic. When I was doing research for this video, I found out, surprisingly, that the Harajuku thing didn't die in 2005 or 2006 or whatever. Gwen actually had a Harajuku themed cartoon on Nickelodeon in 2016. Now look, in 2005, there's an excuse. In 2016, and nobody at Nickelodeon said this is problematic. And also, it's over. Girl, let it go. What's interesting about that era is she didn't just step into the Japanese culture. If you go back and look at other videos of that time, like the Luxurious video, the Luxurious video is her bringing the Harajuku girls into her ripoff of Latina culture, of Chola culture. It's crazy. In that video, it is so freaking flagrant the way that she bit Latina/Chola culture. It's the hair, it's the eyebrows, it's the clothes, it's the Mary Magdalene, you know, the Catholic imagery. And then girl had the nerve to be running around barefoot in a room full of piñatas. It's next level absurd. And you know what? I'd argue that the best video from Love Angel Music Baby is the one where there's no appropriation. Cool is Gwen's best video by far, easily the best video from that album, like beautiful. Shout out to Sophie Muller. And she also continued the theme of keeping, you know, silent Japanese women around her for her second solo album, which, you know, was kind of, it didn't do as well, but it was okay. It had a couple of good songs. So that ended the Gwen Stefani solo years. No Doubt got back together a few years later and they released new music, and they released a new video for a song called Lookin' Hot in 2012. Now, for us No Doubt fans, yay, you're back together, because we were afraid that they were never gonna get back together, girl, because that's usually what happens when somebody goes solo. But they were back together, they were making new music, everything was cool until we saw the video. So the video for Looking Hot was, it had a Cowboys and Indians theme, which, okay. So Gwen Stefani was dressed up as a Native American with headdress and, you know, a little skimpy outfit and all of that. And I think another member of the band, maybe Tony, was dressed up as an Indian. But then the two other members of the band were cowboys. And it was basically them just doing, you know, John Wayne cosplay and like riding around in the Wild West and in their teepees and all of that. And it's just like, come on now. We've had social media for years by now, and obviously as soon as that video came out, there was a huge outcry. There was so much pushback that they had that video wiped from the internet. I actually found a copy of it on like Vimeo or something, but they had to take it down. They apologized. They said that they had consulted with Native American experts or something, and they were so embarrassed. And it's just like, I cannot believe that they did that again, because by the time that happened, they were all in their 40s. I don't know what No Doubt is doing, but Gwen is still pretty visible, and she still releases music, and we see her on TV, and she hasn't done anything really offensive except date Blake Shelton. But other than that, she's just like a cute mom of 3 boys. And I guess the question is, what should she do? I think it's really problematic. It's really an issue for me that she hasn't ever acknowledged the fact that over a 20-year career that she's done some stuff that is really wrong and really offensive. And it wouldn't hurt her to say at this point, I heard ya, I'm sorry. You know, I should have let the Harajuku girls speak, or I shouldn't have had Harajuku girls to begin with, you know? Or I wanted to celebrate this culture. I didn't know how to do it. I did it in a wrong way. It would really behoove her, I think, to just acknowledge that, and she wouldn't lose anything. And honestly, she would gain just a lot of points by just saying, like, I know I came off as, you know, an entitled, spoiled white woman, and I don't want to be that. She's not going to. She's never been political like that. If she's avoided doing it for the past 15 years, like, she's not going to change now. And I decided to do this because it's just fun to go back over music videos and images from when you were a kid and when you were a teenager. Like, that's just fun. But also, it is possible to metabolize that nostalgia, synthesize those really fond feelings, but also navigate the messiness of it all. And I'm not trying to ignore the messiness. There's some real bad, offensive stuff in there. I can work through it and acknowledge the issues without trying to erase that stuff or pretend like I don't still love that stuff and deeply enjoy that art. I think a problem that we have in trying to work through our love and appreciation of stuff that is made by people who are racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, violent, abusive, right, is we think that liking the art, liking the product is a personal condemnation of who we are, who we see ourselves as. It makes us a hypocrite. And maybe it does make you a hypocrite, but most of us are hypocrites in some form. Life is messy. And I think our culture really suffers from an inability to recognize that stuff, to recognize that tension. Because I think that when we are unable to recognize that tension, it forces us into defending the bad stuff. When I see people defending Bill Cosby and defending R. Kelly and defending Michael Jackson, in my mind, I think there's no way in your rational mind you don't think that these people did it. Like, I don't believe that, right? I think that we're so attached to the products that even acknowledging that the makers of those products are flawed will like fuck up our whole reality. And it doesn't have to be that way. A lot of the artists that we love were bad to horrible as human beings. But most of us are not going to go through our lives meticulously and through our favorites and our loves and our joys and pleasures and like pick things off. We're just not gonna do that. So we gotta find a way to deal with it productively. You can love things and still live in reality, you know? You can love things and say, nah, girl, do better. Or, man, what are you doing? Like, why? Why are you doing, like, you're bad, or you're wrong, or that's gross. All of that stuff can happen. And I just don't know if we're doing enough to facilitate living in that space. Because most of us live there. You know, whether you want to admit it or not, most of us are living there. So like, what are we gonna do about it? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm not Sway. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's really all I have to say about that. Over on Patreon, on the latest video, I talked about Jess is Hilarious, who is an Islamophobe. I talked about that Maya Angelou clip that is circulating. And I also talked about a question I got about how do you have friendships with people who don't have your exact same politics? So go over there to watch that. Obviously, it's patrons only. Appreciate every single patron. Leave a comment, send me an email, find a way to private message me if you can figure out how to do that. Good for you. Buy some merch, sign up for the email newsletter. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you next time.